The clink of crystal and the low hum of sophisticated conversation were the soundtrack to the end of Leo Vance's world. He sat across from his wife of 10 years, Isabella, in the opulent gloom of Gilded Marrow, the kind of restaurant where the napkins were stiffer than the smiles. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary, a decade. He had a simple, elegant band of polished tungsten in his pocket, a symbol of strength and resilience to mark the occasion. Isabella, breathtaking in an emerald silk dress that matched her eyes, hadn't touched her seared scallops. She was staring at her phone, a small, secret smile playing on her lips, a smile Leo hadn't been the cause of in months, maybe years. "Everything all right, Belle?" he asked, his voice a calm baritone that belied the cold knot tightening in his stomach. She looked up, and the smile didn't vanish, it merely shifted, becoming something colder, more transactional. "Leo, we need to talk, and I need you to be an adult about this." The preamble alone was a dagger. He set his fork down carefully, the silverware making no sound on the linen tablecloth. "Go on." She took a fortifying sip of her Sauvignon Blanc. "You know how I've always talked about Julian Croft from my theater days at Vassar?" Leo knew. Julian Croft was the specter that haunted their marriage. The brilliant, brooding actor Isabella had a torrid, on-again, off-again relationship with before he was discovered, before he became Julian Croft, the Oscar-nominated Hollywood icon. He'd heard the stories, sanitized, he was sure, of their passionate fights and reconciliations, their dreams of conquering the world together. He was the one who got away, not because he left her, but because fame had consumed him. "I'm familiar with the legend," Leo said, his tone carefully neutral. "She's in town, filming that new historical epic on the waterfront." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Leo, he remembered me. He reached out. We've been talking." The air left Leo's lungs. "Talking? For a few weeks now. Texting mostly, some calls." Her eyes were alight with a fervor he hadn't seen since the early days of their courtship. It was a fervor reserved for a ghost, not for the man who sat across from her, who had built a life with her. "He's staying at the Penrose Suite. He's invited me there tonight after the dinner his studio is throwing for him." Leo felt the restaurant tilt. The laughter from a nearby table of financiers sounded suddenly cruel and distant. "Isabella," he said, her name a plea and a curse. "We are married. Tonight is our anniversary. I know what tonight is, and don't you dare use that as a guilt trip. This isn't about us. You and I, we're solid. We're a partnership. This is about closure. This is about the girl I was finally getting an answer from the man she dreamed about. It's one night, Leo. One night to lay a ghost to rest." Closure. The word was venomous. A flimsy justification for a premeditated betrayal. She had been planning this for weeks. "So let me be perfectly clear," Leo said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You are telling me, on our 10th wedding anniversary, that you have been having an emotional affair with your famous ex-boyfriend, and you now intend to leave this restaurant and go to his hotel room to consummate it. And I am expected to be an adult and understand that this is closure." She had the decency to flush, but her resolve didn't break. "You make it sound so sordid. It's not. It's necessary for me. I need this. I've always wondered, what if? This is my only chance to ever know." She reached out and patted his hand, a condescending, dismissive gesture that felt like a brand. "You're my rock. You're stable. You're real. Julian, he's a fantasy. And after tonight, the fantasy will be over, and I can be fully present with you without any regrets." Stable, real, synonyms for boring, for safe, for the man who paid the mortgage, who remembered her mother's birthday, who held her hair back when she was sick. He was the foundation, reliable and unsexy, while Julian Croft was the dazzling, unstable firework. She stood, gathering her clutch. "I have to go. The dinner starts soon. Don't wait up." She leaned down and brushed her lips against his forehead. A kiss for a child, for a pet, for someone who didn't matter enough to kiss properly. Then she turned and walked out of the restaurant, her hips swaying with a confidence that spoke of anticipated triumph. She didn't look back. Leo Vance sat there for a full hour, a statue in the midst of the bustling restaurant. The waiter eventually brought the check without being asked, his expression a mask of professional pity. He paid with a steady hand, leaving a generous tip. He moved with a surreal calm, as if he were watching himself from a great height. In the car, he didn't turn on the radio. The silence was a cathedral. He drove to their beautiful 3-story brownstone in the historic district, a house that he had painstakingly restored for her, room by room, because she'd said she wanted a home with character and history. The irony was a physical ache. He didn't break down, he didn't scream. He walked through the rooms like an archaeologist cataloging a dead civilization. The kitchen, where they'd cooked pasta and debated politics. The living room, where they'd curled up on the sofa during snowstorms. The garden he had planted because she loved fresh lavender. It was all a lie, a beautiful, well-constructed stage set for a play that had just ended. He went to his study, the one room that was unequivocally his, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a large oak desk, and on the wall a single stunning framed photograph of the Millau Viaduct in France, a masterpiece of engineering and light that he had taken years ago. It was a relic from his past life, before Isabella, when he was Leo Vance, award-winning architectural photographer, not Leo Vance, reliable husband and mid-level manager at a commercial design firm. He'd given it up for her. The constant travel was unstable. The income was unpredictable. She needed security, she'd said. She needed a partner who was present. So he'd traded his passport for a 401k, his camera bags for a briefcase. He'd buried the artist to become the provider. His eyes fell on a small carved wooden box on his desk. Inside, tucked beneath old passports and a broken watch, was a business card, its edges softened with age. Arthur Finch, creative director, Finch & Crane Visual Arts, Chicago. Arthur had seen his work at a gallery show a lifetime ago. "You have a singular eye, Leo," he'd said, pressing the card into his hand. "When you get tired of playing it safe, call me. Chicago could use a talent like yours." Leo picked up his phone. It was late, but he dialed the number. It rang 3 times before a brisk, alert voice answered. Arthur Finch. "Arthur, it's Leo Vance. We met at the Structures of Light exhibition in New York 6 years ago." A pause, then a click of recognition. "Leo, the bridge guy, the Millau shot. I remember. It's late on a Friday. This isn't a social call, is it?" "No. You once told me to call when I was tired of playing it safe." Leo's voice was eerily calm, a flat lake over unimaginable depths. "I'm tired." Another pause, longer this time. "Okay, talk to me." 15 minutes later, Leo had a job. A senior position at Finch & Crane with a salary that dwarfed his current one and a portfolio of high-profile clients waiting. Arthur, sensing something seismic in Leo's tone, had also offered the use of a corporate apartment in the Loop for the first month. The calmness never left Leo. It was the eye of the hurricane. He moved with a methodical, terrifying efficiency. He packed a single suitcase with clothes, his passport, his documents. Then he went to the climate-controlled storage locker in the basement and retrieved his professional-grade camera equipment, the Canons, the L-series lenses, the filters, the tripods. It felt like reuniting with a part of his own soul he'd surgically removed. Back in his study, he became a ghost erasing his own traces. He logged into their shared accounts and meticulously removed himself. He dissolved their joint social media presence, leaving only her profiles. He unsubscribed his devices from their streaming services. He transferred exactly 51% of their substantial joint savings into his separate account. He left her 49%, a message that he was taking just a fraction more than half, the fraction representing the cost of her betrayal. He wrote no note. Any words would be inadequate, and he refused to give her the drama she clearly expected. His absence would be his statement. At 2:17 a.m., he loaded his car. He took one last look at the brownstone, not with nostalgia, but with the cold assessment of a strategist leaving a battlefield. Then he drove west toward the interstate, toward Chicago. He booked a one-way flight for the next morning as he drove, the phone's glow illuminating his impassive face. While Isabella Vance was, at that very moment, likely in the penthouse suite of the Penrose, living out her fantasy with Julian Croft, her husband was systematically and permanently exiting his life. He didn't feel anger. He felt a profound, glacial clarity. The man who loved Isabella Vance died in that restaurant. What was being born on this dark highway was someone entirely different. Isabella returned home as the first hints of dawn painted the sky a delicate peach. She felt complete. The night had been everything she had dreamed of. Julian was more magnetic, more intense in person. The champagne, the view, the sheer celebrity of it all. It was a perfect, self-contained bubble of fantasy. She felt she had closed a sacred chapter of her life. Now she could return to Leo, her stable, wonderful Leo, and be the wife he deserved, free of the what-ifs that had plagued her. She found the house dark and silent. "Leo?" she called out, her voice echoing slightly. "I'm home. We need to talk about this." Silence. A prickle of unease traced her spine. She climbed the stairs. The bedroom was immaculate, the bed still perfectly made. Her unease turned to panic as she yanked open his side of the closet. Empty. His drawers were empty. His bathroom counter was clear of his razor, his cologne, his toothbrush. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no!" She ran to his study. It was a ghost town. The books remained, but his desk was cleared. His computer, his files, his architectural models, all gone. The photograph of the Millau Viaduct was gone from the wall, leaving a stark, pale rectangle. She fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking so violently she could barely dial. It went straight to voicemail. "Leo, call me back. This isn't funny. We need to talk about this like adults." Her voice rose to a hysterical pitch. She called again and again and again, 17 times. The relentless flat tone of his voicemail became a taunt. By noon, true terror had set in. She drove to his firm. His secretary, Brenda, looked genuinely perplexed. "Leo? He emailed in sick this morning, said it was a bad case of food poisoning. He didn't sound very well at all." "Did he say anything else? About taking a trip? About being unhappy?" Brenda shook her head, concerned. "No, nothing. He seemed fine yesterday. A little quiet, but he'd mentioned your anniversary dinner. He was so looking forward to it." The following days were a blur of frantic phone calls. His brother in Portland hadn't heard from him. His college friend in Boston was equally clueless. Their mutual friends were shocked. Leo? Vanished? It was impossible. He was the most reliable person they knew. On Tuesday, a call from their private banker. "Mrs. Vance, we're calling to confirm a rather large withdrawal from your joint investment account. $285,000. It was initiated by Mr. Vance late Friday night. The paperwork is all in order, but given the amount and the timing, we wanted to confirm you were aware." Isabella sank to the floor, the phone slipping from her numb fingers. $285,000. Their safety net, their future. He'd taken it while she was with Julian. She filed a missing persons report. The detective, a weary-looking man named Inspector Morris, listened to her story, his expression growing increasingly skeptical. "Ma'am," he closed his notebook with a definitive snap, "your husband withdrew his own money, packed his own belongings, and left of his own volition, after you informed him you were engaging in an extramarital encounter. This isn't a missing persons case. This is a consequence." 3 months passed. She hired a private investigator, a gruff man named Doyle, who cost her a small fortune. He found nothing. No credit card transactions, no cell phone pings, no airline manifests under his name, no trace on any social media platform. Leo Vance had not just left, he had performed a masterful act of personal evaporation. What she couldn't know was that Leo wasn't hiding, he was being reborn. The man who stepped off the plane in Chicago was a rough draft of the person he would become. Arthur Finch met him at baggage claim, his sharp eyes missing nothing. "You look like hell, Vance," Arthur said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Perfect. The best art comes from a place of ruin." The corporate apartment was a sleek, minimalist box in a high-rise with a stunning view of Lake Michigan. It was impersonal, sterile, and exactly what Leo needed. The first morning he unpacked his cameras. The weight of them in his hands felt like a homecoming. Arthur didn't coddle him. His first assignment was a brutalist government complex, a beast of raw concrete and sharp angles. He said, "Make it sing, Leo, or make it weep. I don't care which. Just make me feel something." Leo spent 3 days at the site. He didn't just take pictures, he communed with the structure. He captured the way the midday sun carved stark shadows into the facade, and the way the dawn light softened its harshness into something almost ethereal. He used long exposures to turn car headlights into rivers of light flowing around its monolithic base. When he delivered the portfolio, Arthur was silent for a long time, scrolling through the images on the large studio monitor. "My God, Leo," he finally murmured, "where have you been hiding this? This isn't photography, this is autopsy. You've sliced this building open and shown us its soul." The work began to pour in. A luxury hotel in Aspen, its glass and timber structure needing to look both organic and exclusive, a tech campus in Silicon Valley that wanted to project innovation and humanity, a restoration project for a Gothic revival cathedral in Philadelphia. Leo traveled constantly, his passport filling with stamps. With each assignment, he shed another layer of the man he had been. He enrolled at night classes at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, finance, entrepreneurship, digital branding. He approached business with the same artistic eye he used for photography, seeing patterns and possibilities others missed. His body changed. The softness born from desk jobs and comfortable married life was carved away by hours in the gym and early morning runs along the lakefront. He trained his conservative, off-the-rack suits for tailored, darker, more modern cuts. He let his hair grow out slightly, the gray at his temples no longer looking like age, but like distinction. 8 months after his disappearance, he walked into Arthur's office with a business plan. "I'm leaving, Arthur." Arthur leaned back, steepling his fingers. "I've been expecting this." "Obelisk Visual Studios. Strong name. What do you need?" "Your blessing and your firstborn client," Leo said, a ghost of a smile on his lips, the first Arthur had ever seen. "You have both. The Athelred Tower project in Dubai. They are demanding. They want the impossible." "Good. I specialize in the impossible." Obesic Visual Studios was an immediate stratospheric success. Leo's reputation for capturing the soul of a structure, combined with his newfound business acumen, made him the most sought-after visual artist in high-end architecture. His fees skyrocketed. He hired a small, brilliant team, a digital tech whiz kid, a logistics manager, a marketing guru. He was no longer just a photographer, he was a brand. His personal life, so long dormant, began to stir. He met Ilara during a project for the University of Chicago. She was a tenured professor of astrophysics, consulting on the design of a new observatory. She was sharp, witty, and unimpressed by his growing fame. She challenged his perspectives, debated him on aesthetics versus physics, and looked at his most celebrated work and asked, "Yes, but what does it mean in the context of deep time?" She was everything Isabella was not. She was a partner in curiosity, not a warden of comfort. Exactly 1 year, to the day after he left, Leo had his lawyer, a pit bull of a woman named Miss Thorne, send the divorce papers to Isabella. They were comprehensive, brutal in their simplicity. He asked for nothing from her, not the house, not the remaining assets. He simply wanted dissolution. The message was clear. Anything he had shared with her was now worthless to him. Isabella, of course, called, emailed, sent pleading letters to his studio's public address. He never responded. Miss Thorne handled it all. The man who had loved her felt no anger, no hatred, only a vast and profound indifference. She was a problem that had been solved. Year 1 bled into Year 2. Obisic expanded, opening a small satellite office in Berlin. Leo's work was featured in National Geographic. He won international awards. He was no longer the ghost. He was the standard. 3 years after the night at the Gilded Marrow, Isabella found herself at the annual International Design and Architecture Gala at the city's Opera House. It was the pinnacle of the social season. She was there with David, a successful cardiologist she had been dating for a year. He was kind, stable, and boring. He reminded her with a painful irony of the Leo she had taken for granted. She was sipping champagne, trying to feign interest in David's story about a tricky mitral valve repair, when the host took the stage. And now, to present the Lifetime Achievement Award for visionary contribution to architectural aesthetics, please welcome a man whose lens has redefined how we see the built world, the founder of Obisic Visual Studios, Mr. Leo Vance. Isabella's glass did not just slip. It seemed to leap from her hand, exploding on the marble floor in a shower of crystal and bubbles. All eyes turned to her for a moment, then snapped back to the stage as he walked out. The man who emerged from the wings was a stranger. He moved with an easy, predatory grace that belonged on a yacht or a red carpet, not in her memory. His tuxedo was impeccably cut, hugging a frame that was lean, powerful, and wholly unfamiliar. His face was more angular. The lines around his eyes spoke of sun and wind, not fluorescent lights. His gaze swept the audience, confident, commanding, utterly at ease. "Thank you," he began, his voice the same baritone, but now it was layered with authority and a hint of world weariness that was deeply compelling. Architecture is the story we tell ourselves in steel, glass, and stone, but sometimes the most profound structures are the ones we build within ourselves. Isabella felt the room swim. David was asking if she was all right, but his voice was a mosquito whine in the roaring in her ears. 3 years ago, Leo continued, my understanding of foundation and structure was shattered. I learned that a foundation built on sand, no matter how beautiful the house, is doomed to collapse. And from that collapse, if you're willing to sift through the rubble, you can find the raw materials to build something truly resilient. Something that can not only withstand a storm, but draw power from it. The massive screen behind him lit up with his photographs. The Ethelred Tower, captured as a spiral of golden light piercing the desert dawn. The Gothic Cathedral, its restoration details shown with the reverence of a religious icon. A bridge in Japan that looked like a strand of pearls tossed across a dark bay. Each image was met with a wave of appreciative murmurs from the captivated audience. Betrayal, Leah said, the word dropping into the silent hall like a stone, can be a poison or it can be the most potent fertilizer. It can show you the weaknesses in your own design. It can force you to become the architect of your own life rather than just a tenant in someone else's. The cost of that education was high, but the value was incalculable. The applause was thunderous, a physical force that vibrated through Isabella's bones. He accepted it with a slight, gracious nod, his eyes once again scanning the crowd. This time they passed over her table. They paused on her for a fraction of a second. There was no recognition, no anger, no pain. There was nothing. It was the look you give a piece of furniture. Then he was gone, stepping off the stage into a throng of well-wishers. "Isabella, you're trembling," David said, his hand on her arm. She shook him off. I need air. She stumbled through the crowd, her heart hammering against her ribs. She found him near the Opera House's grand entrance, standing by a colossal marble pillar. He was alone for a moment, checking his phone. "Leo." He turned. His expression didn't change. It remained a polite, impenetrable mask. "Isabella." The sound of her name in his mouth, so devoid of any emotion, was more devastating than any scream. "My God, Leo, I don't know what to say." "There's nothing to say," he replied, his tone conversational. "The time for talking was 3 years ago, in a restaurant. You did all the talking then." "I was wrong," I blurted out, tears starting to stream down her face, smudging her meticulously applied makeup. "It was the biggest mistake of my life. What I had with you, it was real. What I had with him was a fantasy. I destroyed my life for a fantasy. Please, you have to believe me." He studied her, his head tilted slightly, as if she were a mildly interesting photographic subject. "I do believe you," he said calmly. "I believe you regret it. I believe it was a mistake. But your regret, it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't resurrect the man you betrayed. That man is gone." Before she could form a response, a woman approached. She was tall, with an intelligent, striking face and an air of unshakable calm. She wore a simple, stunning gown of deep blue that made Isabella's elaborate dress feel cheap and garish. "All set?" she asked Leo, her voice a warm alto. "Almost," Leo said, and for the first time his mask slipped. A genuine soft light came into his eyes as he looked at her. He reached out and took her hand. "Ilara, this is Isabella. Isabella, this is my wife, Ilara." Wife. The word was a physical blow, knocking the air from Isabella's lungs. Ilara offered a small, polite smile. There was no triumph in it, no malice, only a quiet, unassailable security. "It's nice to meet you," she said, and she meant it. "I forgave you a long time ago, Isabella," Leo said, his gaze returning to her, once again neutral and distant. "Truly, carrying anger would have been a poison, and I had no room for it in the new life I was building. The man who needed your apology, the man who waited for you that night, he didn't survive. I hope you find your own peace." He turned, tucking Ilara's hand into the crook of his arm. They walked away together, a united front, a perfect structure built on a foundation of mutual respect and ambition. Isabella stood alone, watching them go, surrounded by the glittering crowd. She was a ghost at the feast, a relic of a life that had been demolished to make room for a masterpiece. She finally understood the true cost of her one night. She hadn't just broken her marriage, she had annihilated the good, kind, reliable man she'd married, and in his place had forged a titan. And she was left with nothing but the screaming silence of his absolute and utter indifference.